Hey, 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 and welcome to the Genius Zone. Well, today on our episode, we have the voice whisperer. I would like to call this lady, also known as the conjurer of confidence, the witch of words, the voice whisperer, because she is a transformational vocal coach specialist who helps people to reclaim her power. Now, this is very interesting because this is going to be all about identity and how your voice is really the power of your words is your wisdom. And your words are also your wand. So with no further ado, Judith, thank you so much for joining us.
An absolute honor and delight. Thank you.
And you know, you are such a trooper. You have just recovered what I call an upgrade cleansing kind of a flu. And you've just faced a very critical turning point of your life with absolute spiritual eloquence in having lost your father. And no doubt that has also contributed to a lot of these ascensional flu symptoms that you've had and you're recovered. And you're still here with us. So congratulations.
No, I am very honored to be here. And there is something magical in the honoring self. And in fact, my dad, he died a week ago today. One of the things when we had our healing conversation 10 years ago, one of the things he said to me in that conversation was, you need to be more selfish, which at the time I laughed because he was one of the world's most delightfully, not to many people, selfish people. But actually I brought that into my membership the other week. And I said, what if you allowed yourself, even in your imagination, to be 1,000% selfish, to not care about what you say or what you do, to not give a damn about whether it might hurt someone, offend someone, whether it might let someone down. Like, if you were being 1,000% selfish, what would you be doing in your life? What would you need to say as an exercise?
Wow. That's powerful. And are there any disclaimers involved in that? So, for example, a lot of people, they will not let their voice always be heard and known to their truth and to what they really, really want to express because they fear rejection or they fear what the outcome is going to look like. And what I want to ask is there any disclaimer? Like, do they need to make sure that they don't have any emotions attached that are really negative before they before they just go whole as bowlers?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the disclaimer is as an exercise. Like, I'm not saying, if you were being 1,000% selfish, what would you do or what would you say? Because we don't want to create harm in the world, but as an exercise is the disclaimer. Because I think when we say, actually, if I let go of whether that's social conditioning, whether that is our nature, whether that is the identity we have stepped into. So as we were discussing before, the people pleaser, I've been a people pleaser, a protector, the strong one, right? The one doing the responsible one, whatever the labels, whatever the identity you have worn, they tend to mean that even when we're doing an exercise with ourselves, we self-limit even in an exercise. But I think, so the disclaimer is, as an exercise, it's okay. You're not going to hurt anyone. You're not going to harm anyone. You're not actually going to say these things to people. And I actually do this with my clients when we're working through, I have a thing called the whole voice method to have challenging conversations. And it's actually one of the steps of that is, come on, say everything to me that if there were no consequences at all, you would say. Like, even if you feel that they are horrible things, or what's the thing that if you were being really honest with yourself, you would want to say, but in a million years you would never say to them because it would hurt. But as an exercise, when we allow ourselves to be that honest with ourselves, we can then see the patterns, and then we can create. And this is why, as you said, some people call me the witch of words, because then we can create the thing that actually, in our integrity as a human being who doesn't want to hurt other people, we can find the thing that needs to be said, or we can do the thing that needs to be done, or we can set the boundary that needs to be set. But so that those words from my dad, the be more selfish, with him dying last week, was kind of like, actually, and I'm in a moment of transition. I'm stepping up a whole other level in terms of my business, in terms of what I'm working with and who I'm working with and how I'm doing that. So it's come at a perfect time, really, for me to do this exercise myself, because we have to practice what we preach.
Absolutely. And I have to say, too, that you have really modeled to a lot of people about your very brave outlook on your father's passing, although obviously you understood that he was ascending to a far better place than where he was, and only you know the extent of that. So you talk about transitioning yourself, and it's almost like your father passes and then suddenly you're moving through this next level and you're upgrading, but you're also kind of like expanding on a legacy here. And I really can't help understanding and acknowledging that you've allowed an evolution of that spiritual process to really take place. And by the way, for those listening, when you get to the end of this broadcast, we are going to have a very big treat, as we always like to do, because Judith is going to take you through an exercise process that's going to be like a 15-second stress release. But let's go with what you just mentioned about facing all the identities. So can you explain, because there's going to be a lot of people that don't really understand about this, that when they are, struggling to speak their truth and really say what they mean and mean what they say, they may not understand about the whole identity part. Can you talk me through these different identities and how that impacts us at every level of where we struggle?
Of course. And one of the things I want to say before I start is, when people hear about speaking, like a vocal confidence coach, very often they think, oh, public speaking. And yes, I work with people to help them speak with more confidence in public situations. But one of the ways I work is from the premise that all speaking is public. So it doesn't matter. This isn't just for people who are looking to stand on stages. This is you if you need to speak about yourself or have conversations that are challenging in any situation. And that's speaking about yourself positively with confidence. So that might be dating. It might be networking if you run your own business. It might be in job interviews if you're employed, or promotional interviews. It might be like saying I love you for the first time. Like, using your voice it comes with its challenges in so many situations. So I want to just hold space for that this isn't just about public speaking.
I just have to really, really say this, because I feel this is going to really drive home a point about what you've just said too. And that is that this is about dating, interviews, all of those elements. Now, I know someone who is a speaker. So they are literally on air, they are very high profile, they are a huge personality. And yet that very person is holding back on being able to speak their truth and ask a question to a person that they're currently dating, because I don't know what they're fearing, but they're fearing something. I'd love to ask around this, this person who is, representing the ability to speak freely and who is so high profile, but cannot ask this person how they feel. Can you shine any light on that? And
Yes.
perhaps maybe specifically we can address that, and I'll certainly let them hear this broadcast.
Well, this links to then the identity piece, because your voice is a reflection of every experience or emotion you have ever had, witnessed, or imagined.
Wow.
Your voice is also a reflection of every thought and feeling you're having about yourself. So your voice is a reflection of how you think and feel about yourself in general. So in general, if you have low self-worth, low self-esteem, or don't feel like you belong, then your voice is going to have challenges in general speaking. If in general you think, actually, I'm a pretty good person, then in general, your voice is likely to be stronger. But your voice is also a reflection of your thoughts and feelings about yourself in relation to the situation you're in and the people or person you are with. So this is why the voice is a reflection of our identity. And we all have different elements of our identity. And this is very often where the challenges come. So, for example, the person their professional identity is very happy to maybe ask the challenging questions to, I don't know, I've got a friend who is a reporter, and they are very happy in their professional identity to be asking the challenging questions, to be being perhaps slightly confrontational, to be difficult. But in their personal identity and a personal situation, that's a different part of us. It's a different voice. It's a different element.
Wow.
And so this is why voice and identity are so interlinked. And I'm going to bring my little magic crystal that always comes out at some point into play. So if we think of our identity, right, as our wholeness, the whole of who we are, this crystal has many facets. Right? Now, it's got this sort of slightly ugly bottom that it sits on. It's got all these beautiful sparkly bits, which you can't really see sparkling. But it's always the whole crystal. So, for example, this might be professional me. And this might be scared dating me.
Oh.
This might be family me. This might be but it's always the whole. Now the challenge is when we're in some situations, what we do is we go, okay, this is professional me. But instead of letting most of the energy be in professional me, what we do is we go, so, I've got a hugely spiritual part, and I used to waste a lot of energy hiding my spiritual part when I was in professional situations, so corporate places. So what happens is all the energy goes into hiding, but what's behind? Wow. Whereas actually, when we come to accepting the whole of who we are, we say, okay, yeah, that's a part of me, but I don't need to hide that. But actually, where I'm putting the energy is on what's appropriate for now. So that's part one of the answer for this person who and for the audience.
And for everyone, because I've just come to know that I am too the same. Like the way that I am in my way of my calling as a, an NLP person, parable linguistics, and a hypnotherapist, I can call people out. I can joke and be expressive and sarcastic with them, and even be really hardcore and give them those honest, hardcore truths. And yet I'll be in a personal scenario and I don't do that. So do you think, because you say that our voice remembers like all the conversations that we've ever had, And I know that the subconscious does collate that. So is that kind of like meaning that, say, you know, someone like myself or the person that's a great speaker and yet feels a bit held back to ask the truth or speak the truth, is that a reflection on what has happened in the past and how they have been treated or how they've felt?
Yes. So this is the next part of it, right? So that's the identity part of it, or the different parts of us, and accepting our wholeness and letting go of old labels, roles, patterns that no longer serve us. There's a couple of things here. So yes, our voice is a reflection of every experience we've ever had, witnessed, or imagined. And as you know, as an NLP practitioner, the subconscious brain doesn't differentiate between reality and imagination.
Damn straight.
Also, as you know, the amygdala at the back of our brain hasn't changed since caveman times.
Okay.
So the amygdala is responsible for our fight, flight, freeze response. And your voice, if you think about this, if I say something wrong, the other people, the tribe, right? This hasn't changed since cave times. So if I say something wrong that the tribe don't like, I might get kicked out of the tribe. And I can't survive the winter. I can't kill a woolly mammoth and survive the winter on my own. So that's when the 3 chief fears come in. And this is the fear of being judged, the fear of being seen, and the fear of the unknown, which all come under the umbrella, which is why we all find challenges with this. It's not surprising your person you know who is a speaker is then in this personal situation not wanting to know the truth, because it comes under the umbrella of the fear of being vulnerable.
So do you think if you ask that a person, so obviously, you know, there are triggers of self-consciousness and nervousness or overthinking that hold us back. But you just said 3 powerful gold nuggets just now. And because I'm all around questions, if we were to ask even myself or another person, you know, when you're held back from asking that question or speaking your truth, do you feel that it's coming from a place of fear of judgment, fear of being seen, or the unknown? Would that be a good question to ask?
Yeah, a great question. So asking yourself, because so many people with speaking, especially more public speaking, whether that's standing on a stage or in a team meeting or asking a question, but this can also be in relationship situations. It's that fear of, am I going to be rejected? Am I going to be kicked out of this tribe? Or the other thing is, and this is the energy that I work around the throat chakra when I'm doing the vocal sound healing chakra energy work, is truth. Because truth is a many-layered thing. So are you afraid of asking the question because you don't want to hear a truth that's different to yours?
Boom. I like that. That just resonated.
Okay.
So sometimes we don't want to hear the truth. I don't know, but I'm just so resonating with that. So it could be that that person is secretly just, even though they are living in the unknown, they're feeling a little bit of rejection. They're doing all of those things. But if the truth be known, there could be a part of them that is actually doesn't want to hear the answer.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
So this is, again, like I mentioned, I have the whole voice method to take people through this, but this is actually what I used. I mentioned earlier about when my dad and I came to healing 10 years ago. And this is what I had to use in order to ask my dad a question. And it was it takes a lot of guts. It's that big fear of rejection, or the fear for me, so my dad and I was 8 when I first told mum to get divorced, right? Because he had lots of affairs. Mum was crying all the time, blah, 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 blah. My identity as the protector and the strong one started at that time. They didn't actually get divorced until we kicked him out when I was 14. So, my truth around my dad for many years, and this is reflected in voice, how I used my voice in other ways, right? So I became the protector, I became the strong one. These are my labels, were my identity. So I was always the one speaking up for other people, having a very strong voice. I put so many boundaries around myself, but I never, for the fear of vulnerability, right? The fear of judgment, right? The fear of being seen as weak. I was so defensive. So for those people listening, watching, who may be more quietly spoken, gentler people, and you think, oh, those people who are loud and they're strong, that might just be a wall, a mask, because their voice has become like this, so that you don't see into my heart, and you don't see that I actually really care, and that I'm really soft, and I'm really vulnerable, and I feel everything. So I put up these boundaries, which sometimes is a really quite forceful voice, is a boundary, so that you don't see my vulnerability. So all of this stuff, right, I put up. But then I did, in 2011, I discovered vocal sound healing. Firstly, I received it, right? And I had this sound healing session where all this grief was coming up. And it's interesting. It's like, now people are like, you seem very cool about your dad. It's like, I've grieved our relationship. In 2011, with vocal sound healing, all this grief came up, and I had no idea what it was. And my aunt, who I adored, had died a few years before, but I was like, no, it's not that. And I suddenly had a revelation. It's like, oh, I'm grieving the relationship I never had with dad.
Right.
Which I didn't want to admit, right? That I'd had. But the sound healing is powerful. You can't hide from it.
Yes.
So it took me a few years. And then in 2016, I had a mental health black hole. And I got to the point where I was like, okay, I know that this is about dad. And this is what I'm talking about, truth, because truth is a many-layered thing. And my truth when I was young was, I hate my dad. Then that was from probably the age of, I don't know, 12 to 22. Then my truth changed, and it became, I'm indifferent to my dad. And then my truth changed again. And then, so you see, what we see as true very often isn't, until we come to what I call either your truest truth or a hidden truth. And what I came to in a process that I went through in 2016, I took myself through a training that I'd done with Natural Success, who is the William Whitecloud, who I mentioned to you earlier. And there's a process actually called Genius. And it was like, what's under that? What's true for me? What's true for me? And I hit a truth that I did not want to recognize. And that was, my truth was, I want to be wanted by my dad.
Oh my gosh.
Admitting that to myself was really hard, because I'd spent my whole life going, no, I'm independent, I'm strong, I don't need, It's like, no, I don't need him, but I want to be wanted. So long story short, did a whole process, and I came to that question that I didn't want to ask, but I needed to ask, which was, did you ever want me in your life? That was it. Now, there were 1,000 accusations I wanted to throw at him. There were 100,000 other questions I had for him. But in these situations, we need to find. So for those listening, if you've got a situation going on, there's something you want to know, but you don't want to know it. You don't want to ask the question. When you come to the core element of what is essential, then there's a purity about that. The one question that you really want to know. So perhaps this person who you know, they might be avoiding asking a question. It might not be the right question. So it's like, well, what does that question, what do you want to get from that question? And what's under that? And what's under that? And what's under that? Like, what do you really want to know? Right. So for me, with my dad, it was, did you ever want me in your life?
Wow. And so that must have been a very, very hard question to ask. And it sounds like you certainly moved through a lot of healing with your father, and you almost grieved him already. So it's like your grief that you've had has already been done. I totally get that. I totally understand that.
So here's the magic of that. Well, here's the magic that I hope will help maybe this person who you know and other listeners. So back then, this is 2016 we're talking about when I came to that question. So then I set up a meeting with him to say, I said, look, there's something I have to ask you, but I know you don't like big emotions. So if you don't want to, see, we have to give the other person an out. And he was like, no, of course I will help you. So I was like, okay, great. That in itself helped. But I had to go to that conversation. And this is where we stop ourselves from asking questions because we don't want to know the answer. Is actually, most of me wanted my dad to say, no, I didn't want you in my life, because that's what I believe to be true. Right. So most of what I had to accept.
Wow.
Yeah. So most of me wanted dad to say, if I said, did you ever really want me in your life? There's a massive part of me that wanted him to say, no, I didn't, because then I'd have been proved right. Right. All that angry me when I was younger, hurt me, all those. I'd be like, yeah, you see, I knew I was right. He never wanted me. Okay, fine. I can get on with my life. That was true. So what I had to be prepared to accept is the answer I wasn't prepared to hear, which was, yes, I wanted you in my life. Because this is a man who spent most of his life lying. Right? His favorite gambling game was liar dice, right? He was a consummate liar. So I had to go to that conversation in the energy of, if he says yes, I did want you in my life, I do want you I need to be in a place where I am willing to accept that as truth. Otherwise, there's no point in me asking the question.
That's right. That's right.
So if you've got a question,
so what did you do with that? What did you do with that when he gave you the answer?
Well, I said, did you ever want me in your life? He said, yes, of course I did. And then I burst into tears and there was lots of snot and and then we had the further conversation. Then I let and I still in that conversation had to let things unravel, and I had to, I was there in snot and tears and I was sat on the sofa and he was sat on that sofa and he's like, oh, I've got to go out and get something I brought with me. And I was sat on the sofa going, for God's sake, I'm sat here crying. He hasn't even given me a hug. And then I had to say to myself, I use my work on myself, right? Do I want to be right and going or do I want to ask for what terrifies me, which is, do I want to ask for a hug? Because being the strong one, right, we don't want to show weakness. We don't want the fear of rejection. So when it came out, I asked for that hug. I'm sat here crying and in snot, and you say you want me in your life, and you haven't even given me a hug. Blah, blah, blah. What kind of human are you? Can I have a hug? And he gave me a hug. But for him to hug, I felt it was so hard for him to hug. And that was just of course. And our relationship built from there. And that was the conversation where he said, I think you need to be more selfish.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So that's where he told you that. Do you think that was good advice, or was that something that was going to equalize and neutralize you a little? I mean, obviously, it's quite extreme to say you need to be more selfish. And if you, as a power of linguistic, words, you look at the word selfish, where you've got self and ish. So it's ish, isn't it? So if you put selfish together, I mean, we think of it as a negative word. The question is it really a negative word? And what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you can put self first. And actually, if we don't, and we're looking now with dad dying last week, and the number of people that Yeah, he was a rubbish husband. He should never have got married. He wasn't a great dad other than to my younger brother. So he has 4 children. The only one he was actually a really good dad to was my younger brother. But we've all come to love for him. We've all come to and everyone else in his life was like, oh, he was the most loyal person. He was the most, and this is the thing. We are all multifaceted. And we all have our stuff, right? He was born during the war in Ireland, da 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 da. Like we don't, and this is where I first came to compassion for him in 2011 after the sound healing. Was I don't know what made him the way he was. So, but this isn't about me and my dad. This is about people not having a voice and finding a voice and being able to ask challenging questions or stand in front of people and have a voice. So, how much of you is it like in that situation? What part of you, what answer don't you want to hear? And don't ask that question, or don't put that idea forward in the meeting unless you are prepared for someone to give you the answer that you're not prepared for. That's where that whole story came from.
Okay, so if we are kind of on one side longing for a truth, but then on the other side we're fearing the truth, what is the happy balance?
The happy balance.
Yeah.
The happy balance comes back to identity. The happy balance is being whole in yourself. The happy balance is your deep self-awareness that you have intrinsic worth as a human being. If you know that you have low self-worth or low self-esteem, what are the tools, techniques that you can use, that you can find to shift that? How are you identifying yourself in this situation? If you're identifying yourself as less than the other people, then what do you need to do in order to own the space? So say this is maybe your person in their personal relationship, perhaps it's in a work situation. If you put an idea forward at work and it gets rejected, that doesn't mean you are rubbish. It doesn't mean your idea was awful. It doesn't mean you used the wrong words. It means either that person doesn't see the value in what you're suggesting, or they are coming from a truth that you don't know. There are unknown truths. There is very little in this world that is a universal truth. So allowing the perspective to be different. So your perspective and someone else's perspective on an idea, on something that you're saying. There might be people out there listening to me now going, what a load of rubbish. I need to allow for that, right? You need to allow that other people might not have the same truth as you. And when we stand in something that we know is true, this might be your values. It might be, so for example, the core truth of my work is when you liberate your voice, you will liberate and elevate your life. I know that to be true, 1,000%.
That's amazing. So it's about really liberating, and I can hear that you must be really profoundly and deeply spiritually grateful for everything that your father taught you, because obviously he was like that typical, we say, pain to power. Your strength is your weakness and your weakness is your strength. And, everything that you've learned, and you're here and you're elevating people to speak their truth, and you've had to face a lot of those demons yourself, and even confront yourself to understanding that I'm going to ask a person a very powerful question, and a person as significant as a parent, and I'm going to get an answer that I may not want to hear. But you also, really illuminated that either way, the answer may have been challenging for you anyways. Because on one side, it would be, well, I knew it. I knew that was going to be the answer. But then on the other side of it, it's like, well, there's a somewhat relief and an expansion, and yet, tears and then the whole shebang that went with that. So tell me, what is the way that we can discover our hidden truths? Because you talked about the deepest truths or the truest truths, and you talked about the hidden truths. How do we illuminate those blind spots?
Very often by feeling into, when we're in those speaking situations, like around your voice, what is it that you are afraid of? What is the judgment you're afraid of? What is the being seen? What are you afraid people will see? Sometimes it's people physically don't like people looking at them, but normally you'll be the fear of being seen through. So asking yourself, what am I afraid they will see in me? Or the unknown. Well, what is the unknown I'm afraid of? Like the unknown might be afraid of a result. If I go for this promotion, or if I run my own business and I'm putting myself out there, what am I really afraid of? And the simplest way to get to that is, and what's under that, and what's under that, and what's under that? That's that one question, asking yourself. So for example, lots of people who run their own businesses either hate networking or putting themselves on video. Like this, being a guest like this would be their idea of hell, because they're on camera, their voice is being heard, whatever it might be. So what are you afraid of that? So, and I'll use myself as an example. Back in whenever it was, probably 2016-ish, 2017, when I created this as a sole business. I've been doing this work since 2011, but just this work since 2017. A friend of mine then was doing it's when Facebook just released the Facebook Lives. And she was doing lots of lives, and she was, come and do this live challenge with me. And I was like, ugh. I was like, oh, that's interesting, because I'm a vocal confidence specialist. So why am I? And I was an actress, so I'm used to being on camera. It's not that. I was like, okay, so what's under that? What's under that physical feeling? Start with the body. The body will always tell you. Right? So my body went tense. And no. It's like, okay, what's under that? Oh, I just think it's icky. I was like, okay, what's under icky? I was like, well, it just feels, and then I didn't want to say it. So if there's a word you don't want to say, it's very often the truth word. It feels arrogant.
Oh.
It's like, and the biggest fear of the people I work with very often is, I don't want to be perceived as arrogant. Right? It's the awkwardness, embarrassment, or the fear of sounding arrogant. And it's like, oh, and then under that fear of sounding arrogant, there's a whole load of labels, right? There's a whole load of identity, because I was always too much, loud, annoying, the drama queen, overly dramatic, too emotional, right? So I had all these labels, all these identities that were restricting my voice. And under that was, oh, but what if people don't like me?
Yeah.
Like, oh. Yeah. And there's the fear of rejection. There's the fear. And what if people attack me? What if I say something and people say, what a load of nonsense, or that's a load of rubbish? Or, I mean, at the time I wasn't even speaking about the vocal sound healing element that much. But what if I talk about chakra energies and your voice being a reflection of your emotions, and someone says, what a load of absolute nonsense. You don't have a psychology degree. How can you talk about this? So that's the thing I would ask you to say to yourself is, feel into your fear of sharing your voice, whatever situation that might be. It might be public speaking, it might be internet, it might be talking about yourself positively.
Yeah.
It's talking about yourself positively is so challenging for so many people. And I know you do it, Terri. In fact, it's why I reached out to you on LinkedIn, because you're in your top thing. You said, I am world class at. And in October last year, when my transition started, which interestingly enough is when Dad started getting really ill. So I started owning, I am world class at helping people feel unshakable when they speak. Right? So for lots of people, talking about yourself positively like that, saying, I am good at, is hard enough. So ask yourself, if that sticks in your throat, what truth are you hiding from? Right? These are the hidden truths. Yeah. What truth are you hiding from? If it sticks in your throat and you don't want to say it, what's under that, and what's under that, and what's under that?
I love that. It's almost like the 7 levels deep. When a person sort of gets asked a question that is actually positive. You know, it might be, well, what do you want? It might be, I want to have a really fabulous relationship and be close and have this real, you know, intrinsic, extrinsic experience with this person. And then the big why, which only when it's a positive, but why do you want that? And why do you want that? And why do you want that? And then what you're doing is very powerful, because it's when we're in a negative situation, well, I can't speak my truth, or I can't ask that question because I don't want to scare that person away. Well, what's under that? And then we, you know, to go deeply under that. And you've addressed so many things in everything you've just said, because I was also going to then tackle the identity piece, where you sort of, when you're in that role, like this person, for example, or even myself, I may be a very assertive mentor who can really help people transform. And then I might be not assertive. I may be the absolute opposite in my personal life. So then would you suggest that I also get under the identity? Well, who are you when that's
in
happening?
this moment? Yeah.
Who are you? And who is it? And then I found myself going back to, oh, it's the little girl. It's the little girl that was teased in grade 3 and told that she was a daydreamer by Mrs. Ford. And yes, I'm going to name and shame her. That was all those years ago.
So this is exactly when we were talking before we came live. This is exactly the younger you discovery process that I do with which version of you is filling you up in that moment. And this is a core exercise I do with my clients. I do immersive work. I have a 3 or 5 day immersive where people come and live with me for that time and we go deep, or a 1 or 2 day intensive that we do. And one of the first exercises we do is this younger you discovery process to find out which version of you is filling you up in those situations you find challenging. I work with 5 key versions of me, of which there are 2 most that I mostly work with. And you go, okay, who's coming up here? Which one's coming up now? And when you have that deep self-awareness, you go, oh, it's not my voice. It's 8-year-old me. It's 8-year-old me who was sitting on the stairs telling mum to get divorced from dad and is actually not wanting to take on all that thing. Or it's 17-year-old me who's really angry and is done with being the protector and is fed up with this. Right? So which version of you is showing up in that situation that you find challenging? And do you want that younger version of you to be running the show? Or do you want you now to be running the show?
Yeah, I love that.
A year ago, I was going through some challenging stuff with my mum. And both 9 and 17-year-old me, well, I had to keep continually taking them out of me so that 52-year-old me could be having the conversation with my mum. So which version of you is running the show?
Yeah, who are you in this version? Oh, that was the 45-year-old me that had a breakup with that person I was with, or that was the 8-year-old version of me that was made fun of by my year 3 teacher, or that was that rejection part where I got dropped by an ex-partner or whatever.
Yeah,
that's so good. And I love all the body and nervous system work that you do. And I would like to say that for people who are really keen on really coming into that pure identification of who you are and really being able to expand your voice, you can contact Judith, and we have all of her details in the show notes. And I know that you have also expressed about the body and nervous system and how you go through that with your people, you know, exploring where they're also feeling it. So not only are you getting the questions, but you're getting that deep kind of physical element of being able to go deep into where are those feelings. Like, is your throat, you'll hear Judith mentioned, is your throat tightening up? Or, are you contracting in your chest? Or how is your breathing? And, where are you when this happens? And how old are you? What, this identity. So we've heard all of these. And now I'm going to bring us to the part that we've been looking forward to as we conclude the show. And that is your little technique that you're going to take us through. So I'd love you to take us through that.
Beautiful. So this is a resonance reset. It's a 15-second stress reducer. So before you go into those challenging situations, however your body is responding in nerves, in terms of uncertainty, it gives you an opportunity to reset, to release and reset. So the first stage is, so right now, Terri, if I take you through this perhaps, maybe, and for those who are watching or listening, you can do this at the same time. So just close your eyes, and I want you to think or feel into a moment or a situation where, and don't go to your most challenging, because we don't know where you're at mentally, physically, emotionally at the moment. But just go into a place where you're like, oh, I'd rather not. So it might be a thing you have to do. It might be a thing you have to say. And just feel in your body where you feel resistance to that thing. So it might be a task you have to do. It might be a conversation you need to have. So Terri, if I can ask you, just feeling into that thing that you've got to do, that you're feeling resistance to, just where in your body do you feel that resistance?
Okay, so interestingly, it's up high. It's around my jaw.
Okay, beautiful. And for everyone listening, watching, I just ask you, where are you feeling that resistance? And just place your hands there, wherever it might be. So just place your hands and just allow yourself to feel that resistance first. Like they say, everything, the work with voice is about deep self-awareness, and it's around acknowledging and accepting where you are first. So we need to own what we are holding. So just allowing ourselves to place our hands on those spaces allows us to go, okay, I'm acknowledging this tension. And then if that tension made some kind of a sound, what kind of a sound? Just describe to me, Terri, and those listening, watching, you can feel into yourself. What kind of a sound? If that tension made a sound, what kind of a sound would that tension make?
This high-pitched screeching, almost like the wheels of the car.
Beautiful, right? And this can be anything. It doesn't have to be realistic. So lots of people, your description can be anything. And what's one person saying, it felt like 100,000 fire ants crawling through their skin. And that sounded like screeching and scratching. For other people, it could be, it feels like a 10-ton weight in your belly, and it feels like a thudding, right? So the next stage of this, and I'm taking you very quickly through this sort of sounding process, is to give that resistance, to give the tension a voice. Because so often when we're holding tension, we don't allow it. We don't allow the tension to have a voice. So this could be anger, frustration, pain, annoyance. It can also be excitement, exhilaration. So in giving it a voice, we allowed ourselves to make some space. So Terri, just for a moment, you and I are going to make that high-pitched sound, and we're just going to do it 3 times. And for those watching, listening, I want you to make your own sound. If you want to put us on mute while you make your sound, that's okay. Or you can do it with us. So I just want you to feel it, Terri.
You want me to make the sound that I imagine?
You can put yourself on mute if you want to make the sound, and I'll just make it here.
Right. That's okay. I'll do it for a bit of entertainment here. But you just tell me when. It's just going to sound.
So just closing your eyes and feeling that tension in your jaw and just making that high-pitched sound. I'll make it with you so you're not doing it alone. And go. Lovely. And breathe. And for those doing this, this is the most challenging part of this process, because you might feel self-conscious about making noises, and you, like Terri, might end up laughing, which is great because laughter is the highest vibration human sound there is. Laughter is the highest vibration energy noise your voice can make. But what we're going to do is we're going to make that screechy sound and another quick 2 times, just to really let it have a voice, right? Feel into that thing that's creating that resistance, that thing you've got to do or say. Feel that tension. And again, 1, 2, 3.
Us screeching to a halt.
Lovely. And just once more, because as you can see, you're changing your relationship already because you're giving a voice to that thing. So once more, 1, 2, 3.
Came to a screeching halt sooner that time.
Lovely. Beautiful. And now I just want you to close your eyes and feel into that thing you've got, either that, whatever that thing is, and those watching, do it for yourself, that thing you've got to say or that thing you've got to do. And just notice what's shifted in terms of the tension. Notice how for you is it different, Terri?
It just feels like it's neutralized. I can't even feel my jaw anymore. And even when you asked me to do that sound, and the 3rd time, it's like it was cut short. Yeah,
it's gone. You're beautiful. Now, very often the words that you get to describe this are, I feel lighter, there's more space, I feel clearer. So now there's the space for us to shift into the final piece of this, which is the preparation before you go into it, so that you're in the state you would like to be in. And so for this, I just invite you to place your hand on your heart. And what we're going to do is we're going to breathe out through the mouth, and then we're going to breathe in through the nose. And then I'm going to ask you to hum into your hands. So you're sending a gentle mid-tone or lower tone hum into your hands. So breathing out, breathing in, and say the word hum and let the M linger. Hum. And breathe, and then breathing in through the nose. If you wish, if you find breathing in difficult, if you imagine your favorite smell, you will create more space in your lungs. And then once again, hum. And release. And once more, because 3 is a magic number, breathing in. And hum. And hopefully you're feeling the vibration. You feel the physical vibration in your chest. You feel, and what that physical vibration, I'm going to get you to describe first before I talk about it, Terri. How do you feel physically, mentally, energetically, emotionally in this moment?
Expanded, light, free. Excellent. I feel really, really good.
Beautiful. So that last part is the resonant reset, the 15-second stress reducer. The first part we did was a little bit of my sounding process, of how we use sounding to release emotions and create a new step. So I put 2 of my processes in that one little exercise.
Yes, you spoiled us. Thank you so much. That was amazing.
So the key is, before you speak, if you don't do anything else, do the gentle humming. This physiologically, what you're doing is stimulating the vagus nerve, which stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our reset, reduce, release, calming nervous system. So the humming has been, and if you want the scientific proof, just Google the humming effect by Jonathan Goldman, who is the godfather of modern sound healing, and his work is the work that most of my vocal sound healing work is based on. But the humming effect, or just Google scientific effects of humming, or other search engines are available, or your AI. But you will find that it mentions the vagus nerve and parasympathetic nervous system, because with the humming, you are physically using your voice to vibrate, to stimulate that nervous system, and it will help.
That up, actually. I really captured that while I was humming, and I know Wayne Dyer was all about that as well. So beautiful. That was so very powerful.
The final thing I'd like to say about that exercise is it not only helps reduce your nerves and calm you, but it's also, and this is the actress in me liking this, right? My 20 years as a classically trained professional actor, it's also a gentle vocal warm-up. So before you speak, you should always try and bring your voice into your body, and you should always give your vocal cords a chance. If your intention, your vocal cords are really tight, so the humming releases them, which means your voice will be that little bit lower, which means it will have more gravitas and it will be more energetically resonant with the people you're speaking to. So it's a magic exercise, that humming, on many levels.
That is incredibly powerful. And you have literally superseded and totally gone beyond what my expectations are in everything. I mean, you've superseded by answering all the questions that I wanted to ask you. And I always ask lastly on the show if there was something you wanted to reiterate, or you felt after you got off the show, I would have loved to have said that. But I almost feel that even what you just said does clear that. But for the sake of respect, is there, Judith, anything you would like to really reiterate? Because this is incredible for people who want to stop abandoning themselves and start really stepping into their own rightful, claiming their own power and their own freedom. So is there anything you would like to add as last words or reiterate?
I would just love you to know, those of you listening, watching, that you don't have to be constrained by the identities, the labels, the roles that you chose or that were put upon you until this point. If you allow yourself to embrace who you are now, we need to release those old identities to make space for the amazing potential of who you are going to be. Because when you own your own identity, you will then be able to liberate your voice, to liberate and elevate your life. And when you do that, when you liberate and elevate your life, you will liberate and elevate the lives of those around you. So I implore you to allow yourself to identify yourself.
Beautiful. What can I say? That was absolutely amazing. And you'll find Judith's contact details in the show notes. Remember, your voice is your power. So join the Voice Whisperer and come and understand the absolute potency of reclaiming your identity. Judith Quin, thank you so very much for joining us on the show tonight.
My absolute honor, privilege, and delight. And for those listening, watching, if you are intrigued, I have some free online course samples. You don't have go explore them. And then if you are intrigued, then feel free to reach out.
Yeah. Thank you again. Have a great rest of your day. See you.
Thank you so much.